Hey everybody, Robert here from Blackbeltgaming. I am in the middle of going through some of the classes, getting into the Cavalier, and I just wanted to check on a couple of things. I think today I'm going to talk about some of the skills system in Adventures Dark and Deep. At first we talked about ability checks, and this was earlier in my series, where basically you're trying to roll under one of your ability scores to pull off an ability check. And there are some modifiers that the GM can use. If something is very easy, it's -8. If it is kind of in the middle, it's like a -2. So we're looking at 2s, 5s, and 8s. So if you want to make things harder, a little bit, +2, moderately difficult, +5, and very difficult, +8. So we also talked about if there are opposed, two characters are struggling, and you keep making the checks until one of them fails. And if neither succeeds, they can try again. So that's kind of the gist of the ability checks. But what about actual skills in specific areas? Well, if you're familiar with AD&D First Edition, that's what I know better than Second Edition. So I think there may be some of this in Second Edition too. You had secondary skills. And what we have here is that this is an optional thing. Your characters don't have to invest in these skills, although some of the classes will give you a skill as part of the class. Maybe even some of the races do. When we were talking about Woodcraft. But you need to pay experience points in order to purchase these skills. So sometimes you have to make a decision. Do I want to try to level up, or do I want to purchase a new secondary skill for my character? So to use a skill, use the ability score that is relevant to that skill, and then roll a d20. If you roll your ability score or lower, you succeed. And there are modifiers if you have more than one skill level. You're doing something particularly easy or hard. And a lot of commoners are going to have one or more skill levels in the skill that is relevant to their occupation. So a farmer, for example, would have a skill in farming. So what is it then between ability checks and skills? Is there a difference? It says that every character is able to purchase secondary skills, which will allow them to perform with a greater chance of success than a character that does not possess the skill. While most skills are by design rather generalized, some have various specialties listed. So let's go down here that it cannot be overemphasized that merely because a character doesn't have a secondary skill, it usually does not mean that the character is utterly incapable of performing functions that fall under its umbrella. Most characters will be able to swim and ride a horse and paint a sign, etc. Characters with skills in those areas, in most instances, do those things better and faster than those without. To obtain a secondary skill, you need to spend your experience points, and I think these can be pretty expensive. So I think we're going to get to the cost when it's connected to the individual skills. So I think it costs more to gain a new skill, but then to gain additional levels in that skill, it's a bit cheaper. So the base experience point cost of a skill is sometimes dependent on the attributes the character possesses. If an attribute is listed, then the character can pay that price if the attribute is the highest he or she possesses. For example, a character with a strength, we have these things here, would only pay 3,000 for the forgery skill, but it would have to pay 5,000 for business. So I think we're probably looking at some of these statistics here, and if you have a certain ability score that's higher, that's connected to the skill, you can get it at a lower cost. And if you don't have such a high score and it's connected to the skill, it's going to be more expensive. And there's no limit to how many skill levels a character can possess in a given skill, unless it's specifically noted. So here is a list: animal training, armor making, artistry, blacksmithing, business, charioteer, construction, cooking, courtly graces, farming, fishing, furrier, horsemanship, hunting, jeweler, music, seamanship, wainwright, weapon making, and woodcraft. And it's kind of interesting, what I thought woodcraft was is actually not what it is. So we'll come on down here. Using a skill. And we'll take a look at woodcraft for an example in a minute. But you roll a d20 and apply the modifiers. So again, like the ability checks, we still have this 2, 5, and 8 spread. But if you have a skill level after the first, meaning like you have a second level of the skill in there, you're going to get a -2 modifier. So if we roughly equate this to percentages, I guess we're getting like a 10% bonus to our roll. And if you're using a specialty in that skill, it's another -2. So you're going to have a better chance when you're trained in these skills. Now, I read off a list of secondary skills, and that was considered starting skills. But there's a more extensive list here that includes things like alchemy, bullying, close fighting, espionage. We didn't see these on the other list of the starting skills. So there are even more things that you can be trained in: healing, poison, swindling, all kinds of different things, even tracking, like a ranger. So let's take a look at some examples of what these skills are. We won't go through them all, of course, but we have forgery, because that was one that was talked about in the example, and getting a discount if it was related to your highest ability score. So let's say you had a character and dexterity was the highest ability score, or was tied as the highest ability score for your character. The base experience point cost to gain the forgery skill would be 3,000 experience points. Yes, it's expensive. Now, if you didn't have dexterity as your top score, let's say it was strength or something, it wouldn't matter even if your dexterity score was 17. If your strength was 18, your strength is your highest one. So if dexterity is not your highest score, you're going to have to pay 5,000 experience points to gain the forgery skill. Additional skill levels will cost 1,500. You make checks to use forgery against your dexterity. And this skill allows your character to counterfeit a signature, copy a map, falsify documents, and the like. The skill requires a 2-step process. First, the forger must make a successful skill check to create the forgery in the first place. Then, those to whom the forgery is presented must make an intelligence check with the usual +2 penalty per skill level of the forger to detect the forgery. All right, so there we have it. Let's take a look at something like healing. Healing sounds, a bit more broad and useful. We have healing here with a base cost of 2,000. And although it uses intelligence, it doesn't really come at a different cost if intelligence is your highest ability or not. It just costs anybody who wants to be trained in healing 2,000 experience points. Each additional level costs 1,000. So this is about first aid, setting broken bones, etc. Healing, the natural healing rate in old school AD&D was 1 hit point per day, but I believe you needed complete rest. So it wasn't just the sleeping of 8 hours. I think you needed to actually completely rest for an entire day to regain 1 hit point. Yeah, it's very different from modern games where you kind of go down on one knee and take a deep breath and then you've got all your hit points back. It's different from that, so it's not 4th edition or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So what you have here is with a healer, if they make their check, you can heal faster. So with a day of complete rest, you can heal 2 hit points per day. Or even if you did get your 8 hours of sleep, but you still needed to get up and travel, with the help of a healer, you're still going to get at least 1 hit point per day. So that is helpful. It does speed up the old school healing rates. You can heal up to 3 different people per time per skill level. You kind of max out at 5 skill levels. And you do need to make a separate heal check each day to help. And something really neat here is that someone with healing, who has this healing skill, can assist someone who's been bitten or stung by a poisonous creature. So let's say that you are poisoned, and I'll have to check the the monster manual, the bestiary for this game to see how severe poison is, but if it's like what I remember, sometimes it was save or die. So someone with healing can immediately run over and within 1 round of receiving the wound and give you a +2 bonus on your saving throw, and that can save your life. So what is Woodcraft? This is one I'm just reading personally because it wasn't what I thought it was. I thought it was something like being a carpenter or something like that. But the base experience point cost is 4,000. That's expensive. Additional levels cost 2,000, and you use your wisdom. But there are specialties to this, and it depends on the kind of climate or region. Cold forest, desert, steppe, temperate forest, or tropical jungle. So what is this? Characters with this skill are born and bred to the wilderness and can climb natural surfaces such as trees, stone cliffs, etc. The specialty is chosen and it's considered your native terrain. Everything else is considered non-native terrain. A specialty must be chosen with this skill. New terrains can be added as native by buying another skill level, or further levels can be bought in the native terrain, improving the character's chance to climb and hide. So characters with this skill are able to hide when in natural surroundings. They are more effective in their native terrain, of course, but still skilled in any sort of wilderness. Such surroundings must naturally include places to hide, trees, brush, crevices, embankments, etc. The character's chance to climb and hide is determined on the following table. So it's totally based on your skill level in Woodcraft. So a level 1 gets you an 85% chance to climb, terrain that's in your native terrain. To hide is only a 10% chance, and you don't really have much of a chance of hiding in a non-native terrain. But let's say you're the best. You've gone all the way up to skill level 5. You've got a 90% chance of climb. Hiding in your native terrain is only 30%, and you have a 15% to hide in non-native terrain. So it gives you some chance, but it's not crazy, It's not crazy high. When in familiar terrain, characters with Woodcraft get a +2 bonus on surprise rolls, and enemies get a -2 penalty on theirs if the character is alone or with other characters with Woodcraft. So you're very good at kind of sneaking around and setting an ambush in your native terrain. Even in unfamiliar terrain, they get a -1 bonus, probably to initiative here, and the enemies get a +1 penalty to surprise. Let's see the -1 bonus, probably to surprise rolls, and the enemies get a +1 penalty. So in their native terrain, characters with this skill are able to forage for food, fish, trap small game, build shelter, improvise clothing, etc. So it's almost like a survival skill. They can also identify types of plants and animals and determine direction even on the most overcast days. And they may also predict weather as per the spell. Scalds and barbarians, and that's where I remember reading about this, they begin the game with 1 skill level in Woodcraft. Further skill levels for these Scalds and Barbarians will only cost 3,000. So what does it cost everyone else? Further skill levels only cost those classes 3,000. That's a little odd, isn't it? Because additional skill levels cost 2,000. Why would that be more expensive for them? Not sure. That's something. There's something I'm missing here, or maybe that's a question I would have for the author. Scalds and Barbarians. I thought I remember hearing that he did make some adjustments with the cost of some of these secondary skills. So unless I'm missing something or just misinterpreting, maybe this was something that slipped through that was maybe related to older costs. Probably if I needed to manage this on the spot and make a ruling based on, rangers getting a discount and all this kind of thing, if additional skill levels cost 2,000, I would probably give a discount here to Scalds and Barbarian characters. So I certainly wouldn't make it more than other classes would pay. So it might be half of that, something like that. I just stopped here as I was scrolling down. What about tracking? A lot of characters want to be able to track. And of course, we're eventually going to get to rangers, right? The base experience point cost to track is 2,500, and that's going to be everybody. Additional levels, 1,500, and you make a check against wisdom. Characters with the tracking skill can trail their quarry in both indoor and outdoor conditions. If they're trying to actively hide their hide their tracks, obscuring footprints and all, there's a -2 penalty to the roll. Now, aside from the following the actual trail of the prey, higher skill levels allow the character to determine more information. So this is neat. If you just have the level 1 skill, you can detect and understand, identify the tracks of common woodland creatures and the direction they were traveling. Number 2 is how quickly they're traveling. Number 3 is how long ago they passed. Number 4, the tracks, direction, and speed of woodland creatures and how much time has passed. Number 5, tracks as above, but with respect to any creature that dwells within a 100-mile radius. Level 6, the general height and weight of humans, demi-humans, and humanoids, including having a basic understanding of how encumbered they are. So now we're getting up to like Strider/Aragorn levels of identify. And level 7, you can actually check the number of riders a mount is carrying. So if a mount is carrying a couple of people or so, you can determine this. Ranger characters start the game with 1 skill level in tracking. Further skill levels for the Ranger only cost 500 experience points per skill level. So you definitely have the old discount there. Just out of curiosity, I saw the cost here. Wow. Poison. Poison has a base cost of 9,000. And that's if you have intelligence as your highest ability score. So really, we're looking more towards 12,000 to gain the poison skill. Additional skill levels cost 5,000 each. And you need to make an intelligence check. You're able to brew commonly known basic poison types depending upon their skill level. It requires a laboratory with some 200 to 1,200 gold pieces of equipment. Poisons can be brewed for 50% of their listed cost. Antidotes for ingested poison can be created by characters with this skill, with similar requirements. And here's just some general data. The poison types, I remember these from the old first edition game. I don't remember the damage they do. I'd have to check. And I'm sure that data is in this game. But, the higher the type, I believe the more damage the poison will do. So, level to create the poison, that's probably skill level. And you need to have 3 skill levels. Wow, just think how much that would cost to be able to create type E. And it's going to take 5 days to do it. And you need to be even higher level in the skill to create an antidote for it. So pretty expensive stuff. And these are here to give your characters extra special abilities. But I do think that I thought I saw the author talk about this, that not many characters, not many players were buying these for their characters. I think because the cost maybe used to be even higher than they are in this printing. So pretty expensive to get these skills. So most of the time, unless you have a secondary skill coming along with your class, you're probably just going to be doing standard stuff like we all did back in the day and make ability checks when you need to do something. But these are, very specific skills, how to brew poisons and how to use the healing skill. And they let you do things that other characters cannot do. And that's neat that option is at least here.